And okay, probably the only thing that I didn't really like about this movie, the one thing that bothered me was... What's up guys, Sebby here, welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to be giving you guys my thoughts and my review on the brand new Batman movie, so let's get into it. Now I was lucky enough to see an early screening of this film a few days before it came out, and to see it in a theater jam-packed with so many passionate fans was pretty awesome. Now going into this film I had a lot of high hopes based off of the marketing and just the hype around it in general. You guys know that I love Spider-Man, but my second favorite superhero is actually Batman, and he's actually also my favorite DC hero as well. Another fun fact about me is that my favorite superhero movie of all time, my favorite comic book film, is The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is just a perfect superhero film in my opinion. So when I heard they were making this new Batman movie, I was like, yo, this is pretty cool, I'm excited. And then I heard that Robert Pattinson was casted as Batman. Now recently I just watched the Twilight series for the very first time. I love those movies, they're super good. And so in my brain, Robert Pattinson will always be Edward Cullen the vampire. So when it was announced that Rob would be playing Batman, I was kinda iffy about it. I did have high hopes though. I do think he's a very good actor, so I thought that he would pull it off, and let me just say, he definitely did a really good job. So with that being said, I was super curious as to how he'd make his Batman stand out compared to all the ones we've had in the past. And as you guessed it, my favorite Batman is definitely Christian Bale from the Dark Knight trilogy. I love him. I think he's the perfect Bruce Wayne and the perfect Batman. And after watching this movie, my opinion still remains the same. I do think that he still remains superior, but I do think Robert Pattinson is a good Batman with some good potential. His performance as Batman, the Caped Crusader, was very intimidating, and every time you saw him on screen, it just felt larger than life, and he felt like that superhero. Not to mention that Robert Pattinson's suit is just badass. And stay tuned because I have plans to make that suit from scratch. So with that being said, that this Batman was larger than life and that he felt so real, the environment that this movie was set in was the most realistic take that we've gotten yet. Gotham felt the most real and grungy that we've ever had it, and it seemed like it was ripped straight out of the comic books. I gotta hand it to Matt Reeves and the whole production crew, because the production on this film was just beautiful. Every single shot of this movie could literally be screenshotted and used as a photograph because of how thought out each frame was. Now 95% of this movie was based at nighttime, so it was all dark. There was a few sunsets here and there, but for the most part, this movie was based at nighttime and it felt very Batman-like. It's safe to say that the vibe of this film was definitely 100% on point and the best we've had so far. The score of this movie, the Batman theme, was pretty sick, and although it played over and over throughout the movie, it never got old and it just felt so menacing. And when I saw this movie, I did see it in the full IMAX treatment with IMAX speakers, and the sound just rattled the entire building. And also seeing it on the big IMAX screen, it felt like I was truly immersed into this film. There was actually a moment when I was watching this movie that I felt like I was actually in Gotham City, and I turned around and looked and I was like, oh shoot, I'm in a theater right now. And I think it's really cool that I felt that feeling, because not a lot of movies feel like that and make you feel like you're immersed into that environment. Now the runtime on this movie was 3 hours long, so it's definitely a long one, but I sat through the entire thing and didn't get bored once. Sometimes 3-hour movies can be somewhat of a drag in certain parts, but this movie, I didn't even notice that it was 3 hours. It's like I never really wanted it to end, honestly. So they definitely killed it on the pacing of this movie. It felt like a TV show in a way, to where you could just keep watching, and that's definitely a good thing. Now the Riddler was a very interesting villain, and definitely one of the coolest Batman villains that we've seen on screen to date. Obviously nothing compares to Heath Ledger's Joker, but the Riddler was super interesting, and his riddles and the mystery that you went through while watching this movie was super entertaining. Catwoman was definitely a standout in this movie, and she stole every scene that she was in. Another standout performance in this movie was Colin Farrell as the Penguin. He had a bunch of makeup done and prosthetics, and he looked really good, and he also stole every scene that he was in as well. Penguin's character arc was really fleshed out, and he was super interesting to watch on screen. And although he wasn't the main villain in this movie, they set him up to probably be one in the upcoming films. I loved the Batmobile in this movie. It looked like an old school Camaro or an old school Dodge, and it just looked super sick on screen every single time. There was this big chase scene with the Batmobile, and when it first popped on screen, it was dark, and then you could just see the rocket in the back turn on, and it lit up the whole screen. It was freaking dope. That was probably the most entertaining scene in the entire film, and one of the most entertaining fast-paced chase scenes I've seen in a while. There was just something about the way this one was shot and how real it felt and just how cool the Batmobile looked that made it stand out to me. movie. I'm a big muscle car fan myself, so seeing the Batmobile look like this, it was pretty sick. And the cinematography of this movie, the visuals, the sound, everything aesthetically about this movie was the best we've seen. This movie was just beautifully shot, and I can't stress enough how good looking it was. And okay, probably the only thing that I didn't really like about this movie, the one thing that bothered me, was Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne. Now, Robert Pattinson did a great job as Batman, and as I said in the beginning, his Batman was real menacing and he felt larger than life. But when it came to his Bruce Wayne, it just felt off for me. Now, granted, we only saw a few scenes of him as Bruce Wayne. For 90% of the movie, he was Batman, but with what we got, I just didn't really like it. He didn't seem very billionaire playboy to me, and he was just like sad and emo the entire time. Now, if this was actually real life and someone were to look at Bruce Wayne from this universe, you would definitely instantly be able to tell that he's Batman, because he acts the exact same as Batman. And I don't think that's how Batman should be. He lives these two separate lives, and that's a big part of his character, so them not really showing that was kind of a disappointment. Again, my favorite Batman is Christian Bale, and I think he portrayed a perfect Bruce Wayne, showing off that billionaire playboy side of him. He was always seen driving a Lamborghini, hanging out with models, and putting on this big, wonderful persona that is Bruce Wayne. And although Bruce is a broken soul with a lot of issues and a lot of problems, he puts on this facade to the public to see, and that's who Bruce Wayne is. But with Robert Pattinson's version, I just didn't see that in this movie. Now, this is the first movie that we've seen Rob in, so he does have some time to evolve over the next few movies, and I hope that they'll explore that more billionaire playboy side of his character. Now, I get that this was a more dark and gritty take on Batman, and when they say this is the darkest Batman we've seen yet, that's definitely true. I do think, though, for the theme and the vibe of this movie, it did fit that Bruce was a little more on the emo and the quiet side. But honestly, that was probably my only con that I had with this movie. Overall, this movie was just a beautiful film. Now, like I said earlier, I do plan on making this Batman suit in the future, so make sure you guys are subscribed so you do not miss that video. Well, guys, that was my review, and those are my thoughts on The Batman. Let me know what you guys thought of the movie if you've seen it in the comments down below. Don't forget to leave a like and share with your friends if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you guys are new, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Deuces, don't forget to stay creative. Woo!